Welcome to another edition of the Rundown. Week 12 is in the books. Going to be talking about some of the bigger matchups on Sunday and, of course, Monday Night Football. Wasn't able to record yesterday, but I'm here today. And first things first, I want to talk about is Philadelphia and Dallas. Dallas wins in a comeback thriller, 24-21, and this is one of the more dumber games I've ever seen in my life. So many colossal mistakes from both sides, but somehow the Cowboys were able to pull it out in the end. Philly goes up 21-0 in the second quarter, and Dallas just has a couple of brutal turnovers. Cavante Turpin early in the second fumbles, which helps Philly get the 21-0 lead. Dak with a little over 5 minutes left in the second throws a pick at the goal line to Reed Blankenship, which was just flat out a bad throw. And I'm thinking, okay, this is typical choking Cowboys, melting down in prime time. Dak is turning the ball over. They're just turnover prone. Against a division rival, they're just choking like they usually do. They let you down, and they always do. And this is just the Cowboys being the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb is also dropping the ball. It seems like he has a choking problem against the Eagles. He played well against the Eagles this past Sunday, but he has to figure it out because he just keeps dropping balls, and I don't know why he does that. Jalen Hurts on the other side, it looks like they're moving and grooving. He had 163 yards passing in the first half. AJ Brown had 67 yards in the first half, and I'm thinking, okay, they're finally getting their passing game going. But second quarter, late, that's when things started to turn around for the Cowboys with a little under 3 minutes left. Dallas gets the ball back. Cavante Turpin has a 48-yard play, and off of that, they're able to get a touchdown. So they're down 21-7 going into the second half, and I was thinking that there's no way that the Eagles blow this. You'd think that they have solved all their second half woes of not scoring, but it just reared its ugly head against the Cowboys, and they weren't able to score to save their life in the second half. Cowboys rush was able to get to Jalen Hurts on critical third downs. Third quarter was pretty much a punt fest until Dallas was able to score with a little over 2 minutes left in the third quarter to cut it to 21-14. Fourth quarter, after another Eagles missed possession where they botched a field goal, Dallas has a 3-yard, 54-yard touchdown. Dak had a pretty good 43-yard play to George Pickens where he has to leap over two dudes that are playing the ball pretty well. And it was an impressive catch by Pickens and good ball security also. And that pretty much tied the game up at 21-21. And Saquon fumbles the ball, which added to his rough day at the office. He did not run the ball well at all. 10 rushes for like 22 yards. Just a struggling season for him. Dallas gets the ball at their own 33. Can't do jack with it because they have some penalties. They punt, and the Eagles fumble on the kickoff. Dallas gets the ball at the 8, and they decide to go for it on fourth and goal at the 1. I just thought it was a stupid decision to go for it. I know that Brian Schottenheimer and Dak, they like to be aggressive, but I just felt at that stage in the game, they should have just kicked it. Yeah, they just weren't able to convert. If the Eagles were rolling offensively, I would understand going for it, but they weren't. They did a pretty good job of holding the Eagles off because they just weren't able to get anything going in the second half. And just, I don't know, a lot of games this season, they just aren't able to do anything. So I just felt they should have kicked it, taken the points, just be safe, just take the lead. It's good to go down there and just get some points on the board, but they decided not to do that. But Philly gets the ball back, and Jalen Hurts gets sacked on a 3rd and 2. And Dak does what he does at the end, makes some big throws and kicks a field goal to win it. So it doesn't really matter that they didn't kick the field goal when they had it at the 1. They were able to win the game anyways. Want to talk about Philly. Like I said, Saquon Barkley, just a rough day at the office. 10 carries, 22 yards, had the fumble. That's just not going to be able to cut the mustard. Last year, the Eagles were able to survive because even though their running game wasn't exactly elite, Saquon Barkley was running the hell out of the ball, but this year he just has not been running the hell out of the ball. I think you can count on your fingers how many 100-yard rushing games this man has had, and he can be low, but being that low is just unacceptable. But A.J. Brown, he got his stats on the other hand, 8 receptions for 110 yards. And I wonder if that makes him happy because he's been doing all this complaining when he hasn't been getting the ball and they've been winning games. And I've been with him. I think he needs to get the ball a little bit more, and I can understand why he'd be frustrated. But I wonder if like this is what truly makes him happy, just like getting these prodigious stats and just balling out against his defender and making them feel like less than. And if he just wants his numbers and if they can win, that's cool enough for him. The defense for the Eagles evidently not good enough. I thought the defense would do a pretty good job on the Cowboys, but they didn't. 473 yards of total offense for the Cowboys in the second half, and that is bad. But you know what? Dallas does have two top wide receivers, and Dax is playing well. So I mean, I guess there's no shame in that. Um, it's honestly on the offense this game. I believe that, while defense does win championships, offense is just as critical. And the offense should have mustered more than 0 points. I mean, two field goals would have at least been nice. And they had like 56 yards or whatever in the second half. That's not exactly ideal either. Uh, if you look at both Jalen Hurts' performance and Dak's performance, Jalen Hurts 27 to 39, 289 yards, which has probably been one of his better games. I think against the Vikings, he had like 300 yards. Dak, on the other hand, 23 36, 354 yards, a pick. Both teams were 5 and 12 from third down, but I feel that Hurts when it was like third and short more often than not. He just couldn't convert, and Dak was able to convert. I don't think I saw a tush push from the Eagles this game. And while the passing game looked decent from the Eagles, I don't know. It's just never looked fluid where it looks good like 4 quarters all around. I don't know. It's just it's just never fluid. There's always droughts when in their passing game. Against the Vikings, that wasn't the case, but in this game, there was, and I just don't think they're gonna figure it out at this point. They're 11 games into the season. I don't think all of a sudden they're gonna flip a switch and their passing game is going to all of a sudden look better. I just think it is what it is. It just doesn't seem like the offensive coordinator has figured things out. And there are lots of film people talking about how AJ Brown is running these like basic routes, which you can find in a high school playbook. And that's unfortunate because he's not getting a ton of yards of separation. He's getting 1.8 yards of separation. And, that's on him, of course. But I think probably with a more complex route tree, he can probably get more yards of separation, and that can probably help him out a bit, and it can help Jalen Hurts in terms of like finding a receiver with more separation. But it is what it is at this point. They got a big game against Chicago, who just beat Pittsburgh, albeit with Mason Rudolph, and they did it by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But still, Chicago's definitely a threat. Caleb Williams is still a problem to deal with, and that Bears offense. If the Eagles lose, they'll have 4 losses. Won't be ideal for high seeding and whatnot. I don't think the Cowboys are going to win that division or make the playoffs unless they go on a run, or the Eagles go really, really downhill and fall off a cliff. I don't think that'll happen. But with the Eagles, I mean, you want to at least get a 1 or a 2 seed. You don't want to play like the Rams or the Niners or Seattle in the playoffs in the first round. That's not an ideal first round matchup. You would ideally like to play a lower seed, especially with all the problems they're going through on offense. So we'll see. I think Friday is going to be a big game. I think the Bears certainly have a shot of beating them. Yeah. But now I want to move on and talk about Colts and Chiefs. This was a resilient win by the Chiefs. The Chiefs won 23-20 in overtime, and they really had a lot going against them. At their one of the first plays at their own 7, it's 2nd and 7, and Mahomes tries to throw it in the flat, and Laidu Latu tips it up in the air and retrieves it, and that practically gifted the Colts a touchdown. And I said before the game that if Mahomes gets a turnover, it's going to be really, really bad for the Chiefs, and it's going to be really hard for them to come back from that. And it certainly looked like that for the majority of the game. Colts went up 14-3. Chiefs were able to get into the red zone, but they just weren't able to convert, and they just weren't able to get touchdowns. Luckily, the defense was able to hold up their end of the bargain, and it was 14-9 going into the second half. But to be fair to the Chiefs, they did get screwed out of a touchdown. Travis Kelce specifically got screwed. Jawan Taylor got called for a face mask when he was clearly grabbing the helmet. It wasn't really part of the face mask. Wasn't really happy with that call, and they said it on the broadcast also. And that really, really sucks. People talk about how the refs are always on the Chiefs' side. Well, they certainly weren't on their side in that moment. And Mahomes also screwed him out of a TD also. He tries to throw it to Rashee Rice, but he doesn't throw it to his outside shoulder. And if he does, that probably would have been a touchdown also. Third quarter, though, the Chiefs have the ball, and I'm thinking, okay, you can cut this to two or potentially take the lead. But the Chiefs can't get any offense going. They punt twice, can't score, and the Colts get two field goals, and all of a sudden they're up 20-9. But then the table started to turn, and the Chiefs' offense started to get going. Although Kareem Hunt fumbled very early in the fourth, which was very costly, and before that also on a play, Mahomes got pressured and missed Juju for a touchdown, and I'm thinking up 20-9 in the fourth quarter. I'm thinking, okay, the Chiefs are massively screwed. It's over. They're turning the ball over. Patrick Mahomes can't seem to read the field well. Tony Romo said on the broadcast that he was moving off his reads way too fast, and he just was not letting plays develop. But the Colts, they couldn't do anything offensively. They just kept going three and out, and the Chiefs defense just kept going after Daniel Jones. Then the Chiefs come down and get a touchdown. They cut it to 20-17. The Chiefs went for two, and I didn't exactly agree with that decision. I'm thinking like, okay, if you're down 20-16, if the Colts kick a field goal, you're down 23-16. But if you miss the extra 2 points, then you're really, really screwed because converting 2 point conversions is really, really hard. But whatever, nonetheless, the Colts, I mean, excuse me, the Chiefs were able to get the 2 points going, and the Colts offense, like I said, couldn't do anything. The Chiefs get the ball back, and after being off for a lot of the day, Mahomes made some big throws to tie the game up at the end of the fourth quarter. With about 4.5 minutes left, he connects with Rashee Rice on a 2nd and 13, backed up at their own goal line for 47 yards. Rice got crazy yak out of that play. Then on 4th and 3 with 3 minutes, which is pretty much a gotta have it play. If you don't uh, convert that, the game is probably over. He hits Rashee Rice for 18 yards. They tie the game up, head to overtime, and guess what? The Colts have the ball in overtime. They're not able to do anything with it. The Chiefs come down, they get a field goal, and they win the game. I just want to talk about the Chiefs. The Colts, excuse me. They had 18 yards of offense against the Chiefs in that fourth quarter. Just pathetic. The Chiefs had 239 yards, and I said this before the game that if they're able to limit Jonathan Taylor, then the Chiefs have a pretty good chance of winning, and they were able to do that for sure. Jonathan Taylor had 16 carries for 58 yards, and considering the fact that they were up, I'm surprised that the Colts didn't run the ball even more, even though Jonathan Taylor wasn't running the ball particularly well. Rashee Rice was awesome. After not doing much in the first half, he broke out. He had 9 yards in the first half. He had 132 yards in the second half. So kudos to him. And I want to give the defense credit because it just seems like the defense has not been able to get critical stops, and it's not the same dominant force that it was last season. But even though the Chiefs were down big, like 11 points, in the first half and in the fourth quarter, they came up big and they were able to stop Daniel Jones. And I can understand why the Colts fans would be concerned after this loss. The Colts had time after time to put this game away, but they just could not capitalize whatsoever. The Chiefs just won the battle of possession, 42 minutes to 35 seconds to 25 minutes to 28 seconds for the Colts. Colts also had a lot of penalties, 11 penalties for 83 yards, and the Chiefs had 7 penalties for 57 yards. The Chiefs had 33 first downs to the Colts 10. And if the Chiefs weren't so bad in the red zone, there's a pretty good chance that they can win this game pretty comfortably, but they couldn't, and they got to figure the red zone part out because even though they were able to win against the Colts, it's not going to necessarily work like that against every other team, especially some of the other elite teams in the AFC. Daniel Jones is a concern. Like just this game when he needed to make critical plays, he just couldn't do it, and that's the big concern about him. Like if the running game doesn't work, can he start throwing the ball, and it just doesn't seem like he can do that. And he needs the run game to work so that he can function better as a quarterback. And that's why I really can't take the Colts seriously in the playoffs, because I don't know, when it rests on Daniel Jones' shoulders, I just don't think he's going to be able to come out and just make plays. Ernie Adams, who was a researcher for the Patriots, he said his mark of a good quarterback is if everyone knows that the quarterback needs to throw the ball and you're down big, whether it's like the fans, the opposing coaches, the players on the field, if they know you're going to throw the ball every time and you can make throws, then that shows the sign of a great quarterback. And I just don't think Daniel Jones is going to be able to do that when it comes to nut crunching time in the playoffs. But I want to talk about a rookie quarterback. I want to talk about Cleveland, Las Vegas. Cleveland won 24-10, and I want to specifically talk about Shedeur Sanders. He was 11 for 20, 209 yards, one touchdown, and one interception. And Shedeur Mania has officially begun, considering the fact that now he's playing, and I got to give the man credit. He was pretty awful against Baltimore, but I said that with him getting first team reps all week, he would be better against the Raiders, and the Raiders are complete and absolute utter garbage, but nonetheless, whatever. It's technically kind of sort of his first game starting, so got to give him credit for that. And even though he didn't throw the ball a lot, and it was obvious that Stefanski didn't want to overload him, usually quarterbacks, first year quarterbacks, like the coach tries to help them out with the running game, but Cleveland did not have anything going really in the running game. Judkins was 16 carries for 47 yards, got a couple rushing touchdowns. Dylan Sampson was 7 rushes for 27 yards. And when you're not running the ball that well, that just puts more onus on the quarterback. And I think Shedeur did a good job in that regard. I thought he moved around really well, and he's going to need to do that because Cleveland's offensive line isn't that great. He got the ball out in like 2.5 seconds. And the biggest knock from him coming out of Colorado was that he holds on to the ball way too long, and he probably still needs to get that out of his system, but he really did a good job against the Raiders, where he got the ball out quick and he was making quick decisions, and if something wasn't there, he would try to go on the move and try and find somebody. Glad that he's going to get another start. He's clearly deserves it. I don't know why Stefanski is like so reticent on Shedeur. I mean, I think Shedeur fans have been a little bit crazy with the conspiracy theories and whatnot, but it just does not seem like Kevin Stefanski is not that in on Shedeur. He didn't even give the guy the game ball. He's been reticent to name him the starter, even though he has been named the starter for next week. And I gotta say, with Shedeur, the offense looked way better with him than it did with Dylan Gabriel, which is a little bit weird. I mean, Dylan Gabriel has played a couple bad teams also, and the offense did not look like this with him. So I think you just got to ride the hot hand with Shedeur, and if you don't, the locker room is going to be pretty pissed off, as they should be, because they need some type of juice, and it looks like Shedeur is going to be able to give them that juice for sure. But I want to talk about the Raiders. They fired Chip Kelly after another display of bad offensive performance, and with Carroll, I'm done blaming the OCs. I just don't think he can do anything right. I mean, in Seattle, he would fire OC after OC, and the offense would never look right. And at a certain point, I just have to blame the head coach when either side of the ball isn't doing well. The Raiders are the worst coach team in the league. It's either Carroll or Aaron Glenn. It's between one of those two. You can have your pick. The Raiders' offense is 25th in the league, and their defense is 30th, and it's just bad all around. And I was thinking about this, about whether or not the Raiders should keep Pete Carroll for another year, because if they do fire him, it would be 3 head coaches fired in 3 years. But I think at this point, they just got to cut their losses and just let him go. He's just not a good coach anymore. I just saw it towards the end of his tenure in Seattle. He just could never get the defense right. Can never get the offensive line right. I know people will say, oh, well, Russ took a lot of sacks because he couldn't see the field well at times because of his short height. Sure, but the offensive line was still not good at all. And it just seemed like his cultures could not connect with his player when it came to on the field performance. And Russ gets a lot of flack, and he does deserve a lot of flack. But the fact of the matter is, Pete got outcoached by Shanahan, McVay once Russ left, and he could not beat them to save his life. when you hired Pete, the thought process is like, oh, he'll be able to get the trains on the track, and you'll be at least a halfway decent team. But they're not even that. They're way worse off with Pete than they were with Antonio Pierce. I'm not sure that the Raiders are going to be able to get to 4 wins. He's been such a huge downgrade. It's crazy, and I feel bad for Antonio Pierce because I thought, concerning the fact that he didn't get his roster that he wanted, he didn't get the quarterback that he wanted. Him getting 4 wins out of that team, I thought was pretty impressive, and I thought it was unfair that they fired him. But Pete got his quarterback. He got his general manager. He got his running back, which he loves, and he still hasn't been able to do jack. But I just think they have to cut their losses, the Raiders. You just can't keep a coach just because you keep firing the other ones. I think you just got to cut your losses and see what other head coaches are out there in the market and just hope that you get this one right. Plus, Pete Carroll is only on a 3-year deal, so you can afford to like cut losses with him. If it was like a 5-year deal, I would be more understanding and wanting to keep him, but he's not, so you can afford to just like pay him out for the rest of the couple years of his contract. But anyways, want to move on to Detroit and the Giants. The Lions won 34-27 in overtime. Jared Goff was 28 of 42, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jameis Winston 18 for 36, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And I gotta say, after this game, you certainly gotta wonder if there is a level of concern for the Lions. They got beat by the Eagles, and they barely beat the Giants. I'll just chalk this up as one of those days in the NFL where you go toe to toe with a bad team. And honestly, even though the Giants have a bad record, they've been giving some of the better teams in the league some fits ever since Jackson Dart started. I know this one was Jameis, but even Jameis has given some teams some fits for sure. The Giants, we all obviously know about the Broncos. They should have won that game, and it was just a massive choke job, which I think definitely contributed to Brian Daboll losing his job. Even though the Packers, I'm a little bit out on him, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're still a very talented team, and they gave them fits. And if Jameis Winston doesn't throw an interception at the end, who knows? Maybe they tie it up, and who knows what the hell happens with overtime. And I got to say, it's crazy how much more offense the Giants have with Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart in the lineup, and they just did not seem to have that juice with Russell Wilson. I mean, other than that Cowboys game, I think for the most part they seem to look pretty lifeless with Russ, and Russ at least had Malik Neighbors. Jameis and Jackson Dart didn't really have that luxury. I think Jackson Dart might have had him for a game or two, but other than that, he didn't have Malik Neighbors at all, and they look so much better than Russ. And I just think, lots of other teams are going to be watching that, and Russ's NFL career is probably over. And I wonder if Brian Daboll made a mistake in choosing Russ as the starter. I mean, maybe he should have just started Jameis Winston, and maybe they could have held off Jackson Dart for, I don't know, another 5-6 weeks. Because I think with Jameis, I think it probably is true that he would have thrown a lot of dumb interceptions, but I think the offense would have definitely had more life with him than it would have Russ. Maybe they would have been 0 for 3 or whatever, and Brian Daboll decides to make the decision. But I don't know, maybe they get a win out of it, or maybe they get a couple wins out of it, and that certainly makes the Giants more interesting. But whatever's happened has happened. The Lions, they got bailed out by Jahmyr Gibbs in overtime with a 69-yard touchdown run that practically ended the game. Amon-Ra had a monster game, around 140 yards and receptions, and the real test is going to come against the Packers in Thanksgiving. Then we'll actually see how good Dan Campbell's play calling actually is compared to John Morton, because again, the two games that his play calling has looked good were against the Giants, who, like I said, were not very good, and against the Commanders, who are pretty beaten up, and against the Eagles, it didn't look good whatsoever. And against the Giants, you were down 10 for quite a bit of the game. But against the Packers, they have a good defense, and you're on Thanksgiving where millions and millions of people are going to watch with their families. So if Dan Campbell is able to put up a good offensive play calling performance, then maybe that'll give me more faith in the Lions and I won't jump off the bandwagon. But if it continues to look bad, then I think the talk about them is going to be that the Lions' offense is not the same, and that Dan Campbell's play calling, is not the same from Ben Johnson certainly, and the Lions are definitely reeling a little bit from that Ben Johnson loss. So against the Packers, that's a critical one, and their offense has to look competent. Anyways, now I want to move on to Sunday Night Football. I thought this would be a good matchup, but evidently not. Actually, I did predict Tampa Bay would blow out the Rams, and they certainly did. The Rams won 34-7. Baker Mayfield, not a good day for him. Sprained his shoulder, was 9 of 19, 41 yards, one touchdown, two interceptions. Matthew Stafford, on the other hand, looked completely comfortable, 25 of 35, 273 yards, three touchdowns, and zero picks. And you could see from the very beginning that Stafford was comfortable and Baker wasn't, and that Stafford was on the same page with Devontae and Puka, and that Baker, I don't know, he just could not get anything going in the passing game. Chris Godwin came back, didn't make a difference, but you can't really expect him to make a difference. He was out for like a month and a half, and they weren't going to play him a bunch of snaps, so that made sense. I said that the only chance the Bucs had against the Rams were if they were able to get the running game going like they did against the Bills, and Sean Tucker and Rashad White weren't able to get anything going. Sean Tucker, 12 carries for 42 yards. I'm sure that he's not pleased with his performance. Rashad White, 7 carries for 38 yards. And yeah, I guess this just shows that LA's defense is on another level from Buffalo. Stafford for the season is 30 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. And I got to say, I think he's probably the league MVP right now. I know lots of people are talking about Jonathan Taylor, but I don't know. A quarterback is just not as valuable as a running back. I think unless you have like a crazy historic season, it's going to be very hard to win an MVP if you're not a quarterback. I think the only other person who's in the MVP conversation is Drake May, and not to hate on the Patriots because I am impressed on how they're doing so far, and I certainly did not expect them to be a playoff team this season, but the Rams, they haven't had a cookie cutter schedule like the Rams have had, and the Rams have just had a higher quality level of competition than the Patriots have. So because of that, that gives Stafford the edge when it comes to winning the MVP. And honestly, if I had to take someone to come out of the NFC, I would pick the Los Angeles Rams. The passing game is great. The Rams have a great D line with Byron Young and Jared Verse. They can get after the quarterback, and Verse is tied 7th in the league for sacks with 9. The rank top 10 in defense by quite a few sides. The Bucs, on the other hand, they're massively screwed. I like Todd Bowles a lot, and I'm happy that he's had success in Tampa, considering that he was with the Jets and he was the only Jets coach in a long time other than Rex Ryan who's been able to have a winning season, and the Jets just did not put that man in a position to succeed. But this has just not been a good coaching season by him. The defense hasn't been good enough. They're giving up 25 points a game, which is like ranked 25th in the league. Their offense has been injured, and I guess you can sort of give him a pass on that side of the ball, but the defense has remained healthier and they still can't do anything. And Todd Bowles is supposed to be a defensive mastermind, but it just has not looked good. And the Panthers are on their heels. I know they lost against the Niners, and but the Bucs still have a pretty good chance of blowing the division, and especially with Baker and his shoulder sprain injury, I don't know how good he's gonna look. And this is the same shoulder that he suffered that injury in his last year in Cleveland, where he did not look good whatsoever. It looks like the Bucs are gonna make him go, and I guess that's fine. But I guess my only warning to Baker would be if you're not the same player, then there's just no point in trotting yourself out there. I know that probably 40% of Baker is better than the backup, but I just don't think it's worth risking it, especially when you're in a contract year. They're going to point to that. They're not going to say like, oh, you were injured, we understand why you didn't play as well. They're going to be like, oh, you were out there and you were playing badly in the second half of the season, so we're going to lowball you. So unless he feels good enough to play and he can tolerate the pain, I just don't think it's worth it for him to go out there, but that's up to him. I think Baker is going to play if he can. So I just hope he plays pretty well, but I don't know. I'm not going to go all the way out on the Bucs yet because it is the Panthers. I'm still not a believer in the Panthers, even though I am impressed with how many games they've been able to win because I did not expect them to win this many games. I thought they would be the Falcons this season, but they're better coached in all three phases of the game. They're definitely better coached than the Bucs. I think that's for damn sure. I think Dave Canales is getting more out of his roster than Todd Bowles is getting out of his roster. I apologize for the abrupt jump cut. When I was recording my segment about the Panthers and Niners, it just timed out in between, so I'm just redoing it. So, obviously the Niners won 20-9 on Monday Night Football, and it was just an offensive abomination, truth be told, in the first half. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions, and these weren't fluky interceptions. They were just flat out bad interceptions where he's just trying to make something happen down the field, and he just gets picked off. J.C. Horn picked off 2 of his interceptions, and unfortunately he had to go out of the game because of a concussion. But honestly, Brock Purdy throwing 3 interceptions didn't matter because the Panthers weren't able to do jack with it. They only got 3 points out of it, and one of Brock Purdy's interceptions, Bryce Young came back and threw another interception at the goal line. So ultimately, it didn't matter. Bryce Young, just not a good game for him. 28 yards at the half. Just didn't feel like he was reading the field well whatsoever. And it was crazy because you would think after coming off a 448-yard game against the Falcons, he'd be much better against decimated Niners defense. Not to say that he would throw for 400 yards, but you'd think he'd be a little bit more competent, but that just wasn't the case whatsoever. And the Panthers, this is why I don't really have confidence in them winning the division against the Bucs. Maybe I'm underestimating them, but I just feel like the Bucs will still be able to win the division because of games like these. The Panthers, they have the Bucs twice, they have the Rams, the Saints, and the Seahawks. So definitely a tough schedule for sure. And they face the Bucs twice. If they're able to get a win off the Bucs and win like one of those tough games, they definitely have a shot of winning the division, especially with Baker having a shoulder injury. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I mean, if Baker looks awful with his shoulder injury, then they definitely have a shot. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm just not a fan of Bryce's ceiling. I know he's a good guy and he can probably lead a locker room and whatnot. But I just think with him being 5'10", there's so much he has on his ceiling, and he's going to have a lot of limitations. And when a quarterback is short, you need a good running game to help protect him. Even Troy Aikman talked about on the broadcast on how just like he was not able to make some throws because of his limited height. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the Panthers. But nonetheless, still a very successful season for them because nobody expected them to win this many games at this point in this season. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I will be back Friday to break down a couple of the Thanksgiving games and also some of the Sunday games. So yeah, thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much.